Hello, future Julian here again. This is my third meeting with Stephen this year, March 2025. This past month, I focused on adding values to my drawings, and it kind of felt like I was relearning how to add value. I always found it awkward the way I did it, just apply pencil to paper pretty much. So I think it was a good thing that I was able to discuss it with Stephen here. Other than that, I don't really have much more to say, so I'll just cut right to the meeting here.
But you've been working on blocking in values.
I have. I just tried to use a softer pencil to add in values, and because I never had a procedure, a way of doing it, then I kind of felt like it's my first time holding a pencil again. I don't know
Hmm.
if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
It surprised me how different they behaved, the different softnesses. I think I got a better idea of how they work. Not a good idea, but at least a better idea.
yeah.
And I think what I ended up deciding was maybe I should be layering them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it just takes so much time. I don't know. Is it supposed to take a lot of time?
That's such a good question. Yeah, I mean, it should take some time. Yeah, I think that we're all trying to shorten the amount of time that it takes. And the more that you practice with graphite, incrementally you'll be able to solve things a bit faster, or even to generate keying concepts, so whole composition value-based concepts that will ensure that your value application time will be spent in the most appropriate areas. That's a little bit abstract to say, but there's levels to how you can get faster. There's faster in terms of actual application and how it works to get even values. And then there's also planning how much you need even values and where.
Hmm.
If you eliminate the need for even values in, say, 75, 80, 90% of your composition, well, then great.
Hmm.
You only need to refine that kind of those small areas within the features, and you can be kind of rougher elsewhere. That's another way to like speed things up because we're all going to die, and I can only make so many drawings in the time that I have. So I don't
Yeah.
want to waste my time, darkening a sweater evenly, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Sorry to get so existential, but
Oh no, that's fine.
it's a compelling reason to not draw slow.
Yeah.
But yes, it's supposed to take a long time. You're definitely going to need to get used to doing that, and there's other things that can shorten the amount of time required to do that. Yeah.
Okay. I just feel like my idea of going in with an HB pencil and making even values everywhere, and then coming in with a 2E, and then
Hmm.
sure, it's a smaller area to cover, but layering that on top of HB and then layering 4B on top of 2B.
Yeah.
Is that how it's
Yeah,
supposed
right.
to
For
be?
sure. For sure, you can just go with a 4B. When I'm doing like barg lessons for students and things, I kind of prescribe the way that I was taught, which I think is generally a good one. But it was not taught with the idea of expediting anything. So
Mm.
the idea was that you would block in like a 2H, and then you would go to an HB, and then you'd go to like a 2B, and then you'd go to like your final black or whatever.
Mm.
Now that's good and that's fine if you have like 5 weeks that you want to take on a barg minimum. However, I think that it's probably your actual practice, which I think your studying can mirror, is a lot more like something that started to occur to me when I was taking commissions. Actually, there's one commission that I had during COVID when I had to basically we had already gotten the thumbs up from like Norwegian immigration to come to Norway. And there was a short window of time in the sort of international kind of quarantining where we could fly to Norway. but I had this commission that I needed to finish before I left the States and like pack up my apartment.
Mhm.
So long story short, I just started with 6Bs everywhere, got really dark really fast, and then worried about building up my tones from there. And for sure, you can cut out the middleman vis-a-vis like using your 2H, using your. That being said, like of course you have to be good at it, but getting good at it
Oh,
means doing it. So, you know,
of course.
yeah. So I'm all in favor of it. All in favor of expediting, using softer graphite at a certain point. It's good. That being said, there's levels to it. There's people that I wouldn't recommend it to, or rather, people that I would say like that's not what is affecting your ability to draw. You know,
Oh,
um,
okay, yeah.
one of the things that I really like this drawing, though it was the second one, I think is the strongest of them. Um, and I think the evenness of tone that you achieve, the structure that you achieve here, is all just all working together. And I really, really like the effect that you've developed here. Uh, let's say that you wanted this one to be faster. Absolutely, blocking in with those softer leads would be totally fine. Um, they're more smudgeable, they're more manipulable, they're easier to make soft edges out of. Uh, eventually, you know, the way that we use the graphite grades, it's a little, it's more pointed than what initially it seems. So when we say block in a 2H, that's a convenient way to keep things light. But really, what a 2H is about modeling form within the lightest planes, right? So if you
Mm.
need to be adding value to this area, guess what? That's where you're not using the 6B. That's where there is no substitute for like a harder grade of graphite.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm actually very surprised. This was my least favorite drawing and I actually
What?
gave
Get
up
at it. Why?
pretty.
Why was it your least favorite?
I don't know. It just felt so blotchy and
Huh.
I wasn't getting anywhere. That's why I was like, wait, let me just do it with HB first because jumping straight to 6B didn't seem to be working.
Which one was your favorite? Just out of curiosity.
This HB one, actually.
This
Um,
one.
and then when I look at the 4B again, I kind of like that one too, but I think the HB one,
It's so funny. Artists like literally never can know what is going. I mean, it can in one way erode your confidence that like you can't know which one
yeah,
somebody's actually gonna like. Like, cause I'll think like, oh, this one, I'm fucking in love with this one, and then that's the one that like nobody really cares about. And then there's some random thing that everybody will like. I can tell
yeah.
you why I like this one. Um, some of
Because
it could have to do a little bit with the pose, but I think when I look at the way that you've handled the nose, and in particular, like the nose and mouth, the whole face, like I read the planes of it so clear, and I think the intersection there of value application to the structure and planes that I know are there is so spot on. Like it works really, really well. Only thing that would make it stronger is, say, you figuring out a solution in the darks where you can similarly show the structure of the mouth as it transitions into shadow. That's the only spot that I think is like, oh, or well, rather, I mean, obviously you can develop a lot of things, but that is one critical place where I'd say, oh, if that was better, I would have like a stronger feeling for the like overall construction and accuracy and everything of the pose. So
mhm.
getting used to working in that kind of duotone value area, you know?
Yeah, I do remember you mentioning that. So I must have just, I'm not used to working with that. So I was always just in my head. I remember, okay, make the nose duotone so that you can see the other nostril in the dark.
Yeah.
But
Well, but that's what I mean. The thing is that you did it there. Like that's, you made that part work.
uh
This is the part that doesn't have enough of it. And I would even say the eye as it goes into shadow. I think it's almost like we need to think about there's like the features, and then there's this like sort of veil of shadow that runs across them. But you almost have to think about them separately. Like there's the veil of shadow, and
mm,
then there's like the structural linear form of the thing underneath that. And if you render those two things like separately but together, I think that's how I think about uh, drawing in this way that I'm prescribing. uh, Partly because like there's no real shadow and or rather shadow and light dynamic that motivates this, right? Like it's an ambient occlusion. It's inside the shadow that is supposed to be this like singular thing, but it's not. So it's like a totally different kind of rendering concept.
mhm.
But you see how solid it makes that muzzle form, the kind of mouth area.
Yeah.
And Julian, to the point about speeding things up, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? When you key your shadows a little bit lighter, in order to reveal a space for the value of these darker accents, you don't have to apply as much value to the shadow area. Uh, so it actually kind of speeds things up, as well as by the way, making them like more flattering. So like if I'm doing this, I'm thinking about like darker accents in some of these areas like this. I'm thinking about the darkness of the eyebrow as it descends into shadow, the outside corner of the eye. And I'm going to keep this kind of relatively light in relationship to those. Obviously the darkness of the nose and the ambient occlusion there. I feel like I can make a lot of, uh, this is like weird antiquated statements that I use, and it must just be books that I read, but like make hay. You know the saying, you make hay
No.
means to like it's almost like you're making profit, to
Hmm.
make hay.
Okay.
I'm not from a farm, but it's somewhere that is like seeped into my vernacular.
What is hay
Um,
made from? Is that wheat?
I
Is it like a
have no.
byproduct of wheat?
This expresses my lack of knowledge in that area. I have no idea. So if you say that someone is making hay,
Hmm.
you mean that they're taking advantage of a situation that is favorable to them while they have the chance to. It's
Okay.
exactly the right usage, but what a weird. Why am I saying that? Um,
It's a nice
right.
phrase. If
It's
it's,
not.
yeah.
It's not bad, but I do have to explain it a bit. I feel.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of it.
Yeah. Um, but right. So speaking of making hay, if I key it in this way, I can get a lot more expression out of the features because really, I don't want to lose half the mouth into shadow. That's
Mhm.
not ideal in a portrait. Nor do I want to key my beautiful portrait of a beautiful person who's I'm commissioned to draw, with these like deep, dark, cavernous, sort of 17th century, painting shadows.
Mhm.
You want it to feel like light and effervescent. I mean, aesthetically, I mean, I think you do. Um, and this is one way that you can kind of create that effect. It's dynamic, it looks cool, and it saves you a bit of time vis-a-vis putting all that even tone into these dark areas. That, by the way, nobody really wants to look here. I mean, or rather, it is not the main thrust of the composition. Is like this bit of hair that's all dark and now requires apparently tons of like layers of application.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the things I would suggest with that one is get used to that. And I used to suggest to students as well that like, oh, well, you can have these material differences that can create these changes. And up to a point, I believe that that's true, but it's kind of like the advice that, oh, you should use big brushes when you paint to avoid details. Um, yeah, but you can just avoid the details. Use any size brush that you want. So it's not, it doesn't guarantee that you avoid details by saying, use a big brush. It just makes it way harder for you to kind of do so on a material level. So like, using uh, using harder leads doesn't guarantee that you won't push too hard or make your values too diverse or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I think it's a cool drawing, Julian.
Well, thank
I
you.
think that is like a major step up too from the last set of value applications that you were making.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I at least had it in my mind to try to make things even this time.
Hmm. But do you remember the last ones? I almost want to bring the last ones in just for like
Yeah, I do remember them.
validation of.
Yeah. I was looking through them when I took pictures of these to send over. I was flipping through my sketchbook to see them.
Oof. Yeah. Ooh. Uh,
Please be
rough.
kind, Stephen.
No, no, we're bringing these guys in.
All right, all right.
Here we go. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that is what a month of deliberate practice looks like.
Mm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
really good stuff.
this seems to me to just be HB as well, or maybe I don't
Hmm.
remember anymore. But
Yeah, HP or not. Yeah, I like the value application a lot more here. Um, so where do you feel like the kind of interface between structural drawing and like shadow and light visual stuff is for you right now?
um, I think I'm finding the structural and plain ear drawing to be still very enjoyable, and then transitioning into adding value still to be very difficult, probably because I'm just not very well practiced in it.
Hmm.
And I don't know, maybe I just can't tell when I'm doing a good job with it, as
Hmm.
evidenced by our current conversation.
Hmm.
Um, I guess also because it just takes a lot of time to
Hmm.
develop the values.
Hmm.
I'm always wondering if I should try to do things with charcoal if I'm so adamant about saving a lot of time.
Hmm.
But then I also remember there being graphite powder you can get to just
Hmm.
apply things. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't feel like I've earned the right to use it. I have to
Well,
put in
while
the hours of
it's a
graphite.
relatively admirable attitude, I think that the wizened older artist in me says, don't ever wait for like permission validation or having earned something. Just go. Um, it's audacity, I think, that fuels a lot of progress. Wait for the people giving you feedback, be it, teachers that you work with or other artists in your circle. Let them ask you to hold back.
Hmm.
You don't ever need to like tell yourself to hold back. Um, that's a broader advice, but still, I think it kind of holds true. Um, Now, as to the whether or not charcoal solves the problem, speed, I would say, is I think the end result would be negligible between like if you were working in charcoal with the values spread faster, maybe a little bit, but you'd sacrifice a lot in terms of control. What I would recommend instead of that is to try to get like softer graphite, like and manipulate it in different ways. You know, one of the things I think it would probably in your hands would scare the crap out of you. Uh, just because you're a very deliberate guy, and this is stuff that's this is like Quicksilver. But this from these graphite sticks from
Oh,
Conte Paris.
okay.
Now, what sets them apart is that yes, a 2B looks a lot like an 8B for whatever
Really?
reason. Yeah, no, it's I don't all these graphite formulas are different, but this 4B is as dark as my 10B Mitsubishi pencil.
Wow.
Um, but it's not actually the thing that totally sets them apart. What does that is the fact that it's very spreadable. So like I could almost smudge it off with my finger like charcoal would do.
Mm.
So it's a very interesting thing that kind of sits in between graphite and charcoal, and for that reason, I find them like really really useful. Maybe, are they difficult to control? Sure, sure. I think that you would find that, but it would keep you in that graphite space, so you wouldn't have the kind of relearning a new material. Because like charcoal can be controlled, but it's a whole other ball game
Hmm.
to graphite. If you want to move into charcoal, of course, I'll help you experiment in every way possible. There's plenty of advice I can give. I worked in it for, I don't know, fucking 10 years before I wised up. I just started using graphite again. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Yeah, I used to draw with charcoal actually, and just as with graphite, I was just as is that a good word for it? But I really didn't know what I was doing in both ways, I think.
Hmm.
But I liked how dark it could get and so fast.
Were you using compressed charcoal or
I
vine
had
charcoal?
vine charcoal, I had compressed charcoal. I had like I believe I got general charcoal pencils. And yeah, I was just playing around with those
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I never had
Eventually,
that.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, sorry. I never had that sense of structure that came around when I started to work with you. And then I wonder if I return, I think it would be much better. I'm sure it would be much better, but
Hmm.
I'm probably still going to be as bad at using it. So,
Yeah. Well, it could be. There's nothing wrong with like, of course, trying to optimize for the effect that you want to get. Naturally, that's going to be a good thing. The I'll tell you where like compressed charcoal, I feel like there's a future in compressed charcoal.
hmm.
The only issue that I have with it is what to do in like light halftone areas.
Hmm.
Like charcoal is this just it's black is black is black, and I'm used to being able to like render some of the forms in lighter areas in lighter values if I want to. And charcoal seems like it offers less control in an area like that. So it bothers me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might be about to get some Iggy barks or
Oh,
some Iggy squeaks.
oh, I
Yeah,
hear
we're getting
Iggy.
squeaks. This is
Oh,
Iggy recognizing that Cornelia's coming home. So
oh,
instead of a bark,
cute.
it's a squeak. If
That's
it
so
was
cute.
somebody else here, there would be barks. Oh, just give us 1 second.
Oh, sorry,
My goodness. Yeah, you can hear Iggy still.
Yeah.
That little bark in the background.
Yeah. Good boy.
That's a bark of wanting to see Cornelia. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, you can block in charcoal. We can talk charcoal. That's fun too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where that takes you. Uh,
I think I will stick to graphite for now. I don't know if changing up the medium just because I'm having trouble in one is going to.
well, I can attest to the fact by doing that all the time. I definitely, I definitely, you know what? I tasted the rainbow. You know what I mean? I had all
Uh-huh.
the options and possibilities. Um, and eventually kind of came back to the other one. I think the thing that like if I look at the drawings now, um, I love the organization. I think the shapes are really solid. Obviously, they'll keep improving. They're not optimal. They're not the best shapes you'll ever make in your life.
Hmm.
But they are organized to the extent that you feel like, yeah, there's a sense of shadow and light that's arriving along with the structure. Where the apparent sort of gap is in the halftone space. And I think it's like most apparent in this drawing, specifically through here.
Yeah.
Now, what we need to do, of course, is have a halftone solution. Always when art teachers are talking about simplifying stuff, what do we say? We say that you want to have three values. 1 second. She's just had bits of chicken. Yeah.
Yum. Chicken.
He lives on chicken. Right. So halftones. Now, before when I said, right, sorry, digression, three values.
Hmm.
In graphite, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Or in drawing, I think in general, because it's an additive medium. If it's oil paint, I can mix up three piles of paint that are all distinct values. And as long as I don't mix in between them, I'll have my three value organization, right?
Hmm.
Graphite, you need to build up values to attain a value, so it's a little bit more complicated. That being said, you could choose a graphite grade that would allow you to add value to, say, an area like this without getting as dark as the shadow is. I say this not because the values here have necessarily reached some level of darkness where they, well, I'll just say that anyway, where they like require too much halftone, but they're organized in such a way that they invite the possibility for it. And in other drawings as well, I'll point out areas where I think that is. You've started to incorporate a little bit of it here, but I think some plane-based value application would be really, really useful, so that your light shape doesn't have to appear totally flat. This mirrors a practice that we had at the Academy of doing these shorter pencil drawings where they were in really, really limited values, but you were supposed to kind of express as much as you could with that minimal amount of value. So for you, focusing on those planes which are not so far turned away from the light that they are in shadow, but expressing enough halftone that there's a difference in between what's happening on this side and what's happening on the other side. So we don't have like a totally flat face in the light.
Uh, I see. Just out of curiosity, these shorter drawings, does that go from like 5 weeks to 2 weeks or something? Or is it?
The sh- uh, the shorter drawings are 2 hours,
Oh, okay.
but they're really small. They would be figure
Um,
drawings as well, so they'd be like a full figure, and then you'd supposed to block it in, add a shadow shape, and maybe a tiny bit of halftone within 2 hours.
okay.
Whether these take considerably longer or not is immaterial, uh, because the point to make is really that they have the opportunity to use halftone, because they're organized in such a way that you'd be able to, right?
Mm,
Meaning that you could look at things like let's say looking at this entire side of the face and say that, well, actually, just about everything there is like a halftone in relationship to the light. And you could even do certain kind of degrees of halftone to try and get a sense of the form of the head in relationship to the light. Same thing with like the top plane of the nose. That requires a little bit of halftone. Bottom plane of the nose, bit of halftone. It'll also invite you to like start to take away some of these features in the light, or some of these like kind of structural lines in the light, and start to kind of convert this into a drawing that has what we call a good visual impression.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
In fact, it's not much more complicated than what you're doing with the shadows. It just has less definitive edges. Like I think that's kind of the difference, right? Whereas a shadow, what you'd like to do is you'd like to get a sense of like what those shadow edges are, you know, what that shape is. With halftones, you should have considerably less of that. Make sense?
Hmm.
Do you feel prepared for it? Is a better question, perhaps.
Uh, good question. I think not entirely, but I'll give it a try. At least the darkest halftones. As I did when I was looking at these again, I see darker halftones in the reference, but
Hmm.
when they are like what you said, when they are the same value as the lightest areas, it's kind of distracting. And
Yeah.
it might be why I didn't like this one very much.
Oh, because you feel like that cheekbone on the right, like, makes it really kind of flat, like to have
Yeah,
that
it just
much.
looks so off to me.
Yeah, like this bit, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, here it looks like that almost is the part that's kind of like advancing so much, and then in this one, obviously, it's that light side. When I studied like just shadow shape, light shape, I would have been probably like quite satisfied with this. But when you start to realize that, halftones are really indicating so much about the form in the lights and the planes in the lights, uh, you can't unsee it. You can't like unring that bell, and that this is as light as the cheekbone on the other side drives me crazy now. To or well, I mean, drives me crazy is strong, but um, I can't live with it in my drawing.
Hmm.
Like the first thing I'd be doing is like smudging that with my finger to like put a bit of halftone on that side to turn it away. This one, this is the one actually, it was the other part of it that made me think of that so much. Because I was looking at that left-hand plane of the nose, and despite the fact that I think this drawing probably could be lightened up a little bit. The photograph of it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I took it at night, so it was artificial light that was.
Well, that's okay. No big deal. Um, by the way, someone did suggest during a live stream that they had a hard time taking photographs of their work, and that it could be to like do a little lesson on like how to photograph work.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
thought, in
Hmm.
fact, the real lesson should be how to photograph your work with an iPhone and no good lighting equipment.
Yeah.
That's the because that's really the challenge that like most people are up against. Like I could tell you the $1,000 way or
Yeah.
thousands of dollars way to do it, but that doesn't do anybody any good because everybody's photographing their work with their phone anyway.
Good
That was all
advice.
a massive digression for what I wanted to say, which was the side plane of the nose here is so naked, it scares me. Um, that and I think it's possible to simultaneously. So this that I'm indicating here kind of sort of doesn't fit into the whole scheme of like how to organize shadow and light, because what I'm doing is kind of playing the middle of the field here, and I'm like adding in this halftone because I want to increase the sense of form in the nose, and simultaneously, like that kind of breaks that rule of like shadow versus light. Uh, Yet it's also phenomenally effective, and you kind of have to get used to doing it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I
Would
think
you
the
say?
difference.
I'm
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. I
No.
know that I know that you said before, whenever you shade in the nose and it's in shadow, you always indicate the nostrils with a second tone
Hmm.
because I forget exactly what you said now. So I don't want to say that you said this, but I just took it as that's a good thing to do. For one, you don't lose the sense of structure, and secondly, it's going to be dark anyway. So why not indicate it now?
Hmm.
Is this the same thing where the form of the nose is so important to a face that
Hmm.
adding halftone where it's appropriate to increase the form is
Highly useful.
yeah.
There was this thing, when you're drawing a portrait from the front. So it always happened at the academy. So you'd have like, say, a shadow in the eye socket. You have a shadow along the cheek, shadow the other eye socket. But because the light was like kind of coming nominally like from here, all you'd get is like a shadow under the nose. So there'd be literally no information anywhere across the nose. And guess what people, myself included here, would get wrong because of this? All the time, the length of the nose was wrong. There's no logical information-based connection in between the two. Um, Now this is not even where you're at because I think you have structural connections. You're building up the idea of the structure of the face from I think a better point of view than just using shadow and light. So you don't have as much of that issue. However, in this instance where you have that halftone, I would love for you to get used to kind of taking advantage of what that is. Also because I think you're able to be disciplined in your drawings and to keep them organized in such a way that you don't need to make a massive amount of halftone in order for it to stand out from the rest. Like if you have, let's say, a plane and you have all this stuff happening on it, making like a little dot in it like that doesn't really stand out, right? You have to like do that to
Mhm.
stand out from all that apparent chaos. But if you have a plane that is like totally even in tone, you can do that and you stand out, right? It doesn't take a lot to make it a noticeable difference. And this is what I'm saying about the halftone. Because your lights are so kind of well organized, meaning that they're kept quite unified, I only need to use like a little bit of halftone at the side plane of the nose, a little bit of halftone at the side plane of the muzzle form to actually begin to kind of communicate the volume of the face. I don't have to like go overboard and create tons of value to kind of get that to show up.
Mhm.
And all it really requires for you to, because you need to make a judgment call, right? Like, where is the appropriate amount of halftone versus where is like not an appropriate amount of halftone? Because you could be forgiven for like looking at this side of the face and saying, well, I see halftone there too, in relationship to the highlight. Like that side of the cheek is darker than the highlight.
Mhm.
But luckily for you, you know a little bit about planes and you know about light direction. The lighting direction is clearly from above and to the right. So because of that, you would prioritize halftones on planes that are facing left, not planes that are facing right, because it supports the overall deal of the lighting or the overall concept of the lighting direction, um, and also it increases the sense of form in the drawing overall. So I guess really that's the next thing is to kind of dip your toe into the pool of halftone on the way to obviously fully rendering drawings.
Sounds good.
Now, fully rendering, we'll have to get into like keying and stuff, which is a simple enough concept to adapt to. But it's like, I think at a certain point, those drawings are going to inevitably take longer. If we're saying, all right, we're going to go to like a full value scale, there's no way that doesn't take you longer than say doing a sketch that incorporates an even tone in the shadows, for example. So I think we could be in this place for a little while, and I think the only reason I want to push forward is partly because if we just stayed in that shadow shape, light shape space, I don't think it's a whole lot of extra work to add that little bit of halftone that makes the planes more believable, you know?
Hmm.
Got a great lighting setup, by the way. You got that like warm halogen on one side,
Oh, here?
cool outdoor light in the other.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't
Yeah.
really think about it, but yeah, there's like a warm artificial light over here, and then
I
there's
need to do
daylight this
that
way.
because I always look so like pale and like anemic in
Oh
my.
no, I don't think so. Do you think so? Maybe you're even more like bronze in person.
I'm definitely not bronze. There's a thing in Norway. They have something called. Obviously, everything here is like so fish based, but they have something called a fiskebolle, which
Mm.
is like a fiske is fish and a bolle is a ball, so a fish ball.
Okay.
And they're these
Fishbowl.
like it's so disgusting. They're like these like meatballs that are like pre-made and made out of fish, so they're just white, like cod white, but
Oh, I
like a
love fish
ball.
balls. Love fish balls. Love
Yeah.
squid balls.
Oh, Julian, no. So they make fiskebolle
Huh.
fish ball soup. But the fiskebolle, you say like if you haven't seen the sun all year, you're like a
Oh,
fiskebolle, you know, and
that's
that's how I
funny.
feel like I look. It's like a fiskebolle.
No, you got color in your skin. I
Oh,
don't think
I appreciate
I
that.
wouldn't say that. I wouldn't call you a fish ball.
Not to my face, Julian.
No,
Get
never.
off here. You're talking to Julia. Um, right. So yeah, a bit of halftone I think would be good. I think that the now I was looking at these shapes over here, and I
Uh-huh.
thought to myself, those are adequate, um, but maybe you feel also that there's probably like a slightly more attractive version of those shapes available to you.
Yeah, thank you for putting it mildly, but I really don't like
Hmm.
I don't know what to do with hair, and it's always been
Hmm.
my thing, I think.
Yeah. One thing that you can pretty much guarantee is a good idea with straight-ish hair is to find the S curve and respond to that. So here we have an S curve theme
Hmm.
in this section. Here we have a more gentle S curve theme, right? On the side of the head, or the back of the head rather, we have an option for an S curve type theme. Uh, if you'll notice a consistent idea emerging, it is simply look for the S curves. There was a student I had in Sweden for some years who said about composition, and I think it's quite correct. Uh, there's kind of the S curve, and then there's everything else. Like it's the S curve kind of governs so much of what we think is cool in shape design. And if anything, shape design is just a bias or priority to one kind or style of shape.
Hmm.
So I think in hair, just look for where the S curve is and try to base your design and your choices of shapes and value around that. If you do that, chances are your shapes will look okay. And then we can worry about how to make them look complex, how to make them look natural. But I think first we just need to get them out of that looking awkward phase. I wonder if it's in all of them too. Yeah, it is a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
You
think a
know,
lot of the
there's some.
times, I'm sorry.
No, no, I was just going to say that when we practice this in such a kind of conscious way, and we work on getting these stages to work right and to adjust things at a measured pace and so on. It's definitely good for progress, and it obviously is a major assistance in terms of like keeping control of the drawing, but it is possible to over-index on control, and in that we can lose a little bit of the potential expressive language of drawing, right? I mean, if you think about, I won't go through like the list of artists because I don't know, maybe you know them, maybe you don't know them, whatever. Uh, but in art history, the fluid line is not an unheard of thing. It exists in a lot of great drawing, but it does need to kind of become a practiced part of your hand as well. You know, like how do you manifest a line and a gesture like this in graphite? That's important to be able to figure out, you know?
Hmm.
Uh, and it seems to me that that an appropriate place to practice that certainly is where we find it thematically most relevant and apparent is in things like hair. So it might be good for you to kind of walk out on the thin branch of a line that is more fluid in some areas.
I think that that's what I used to do all the time. And when I switched to drawing mostly straight lines, that's when like my structural drawings really came to shine, I think.
Mm, mm,
And I always thought that making a curve, I could do it with straight lines as long as they're tangent to the curve.
hmm. You are not wrong about that at all. However, um, the aged and experienced version of me says, "Why don't we cut out the middleman?"
Seems like
And
you're doing that a lot. Cutting out middlemen.
well, I mean, it's the first rule of business, right? Um,
Mm.
but no, I mean, you know what it is, really? It's that I've just been exposed to so many different kind of schools of thought in terms of drawing. Um, and you realize like there's these great things that are coming out of disciplines that are quite different. And so the validation that is that great work speaks to the utility of some of their practices, you know?
Mhm.
And if I notice that there's like things being done in one space that aren't being done in another, I think to myself, well, why not? Like, are those things antithetical? Can they not live together? Or is it possible actually to integrate that without weakening what I already love, right? So if I
Mhm.
love structural drawing, is it possible for me to integrate also something that has a little bit of fluidity, and will that like kind of strengthen the overall result? So um, I think it's something that bears relevance. Does it need to be like this? Well, maybe not. But it's a hop, skip, and a jump from, using a straight line to using a line with a little bit of gesture and then extending that gesture and then extending that again. Pretty soon you pretty much have a curve. And I don't think it's far less controllable than, say, straighter line and angle break approach.
Okay. No, that's very fair.
Yeah. But I think we've come near the end here. I don't know if there's, you know, something remaining.
No, I think I have my assignment, which is to incorporate S curves in hair, curve lines as well, and then halftones when appropriate.
Yes, this is the stuff. Yeah.
All right.